right, everyone. The person who will be taking the next session of today's class is none other than Hafiz Salisu. I'm always so excited to have him on the call. So he will be taking the fourth session of the class. Hafiz Salisu is a seasoned consultant, business executive, and career advisor with expertise in business development strategy, IT solution sourcing, and professional training, specializing in cybersecurity, ERP systems, and IT GRC, that's governance, risk and compliance, implementation, and auditing. He helps organizations optimize operations and meet regulatory standards. Hafiz is highly skilled in business analysis and project management, providing strategic insights that drive growth and operational efficiency. His proficiency in IT consulting, sales, business, and client relationship management makes him a trusted advisor in aligning business goals with evolving market. Gentlemen, with a clapping ovation in the chat room, please let's welcome our next trainer who will be taking us on project management. The title of today's project management class is Scope. Thank you so much, Mr. Hafiz. Please, you can take it off from here.
All right, everybody. Good afternoon. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone on the call, depending on where you're joining us from. I hope I am audible. Please confirm that you can hear me. Yeah.
Loud and clear.
Awesome. Give me a second, please. Okay, I think I'm good. All right. Yes. Thank you very much, Mercy, for that. I also really enjoyed Benjamin's and Gwenga's session. I mean, I also didn't want him to stop. I just wanted him to just keep going and keep going. But of course, if we let him continue like that, it will mean that he's more like a robot and won't stop and won't rest, you know. So thank you very much, Benjamin and Gwenga, for that beautiful delivery. Thank you everyone for joining us. I'm hoping I won't bore you for the next 1 hour too. And thank you for joining. I see some very interesting names in the chat room, people that I think I know. I'm not certain, but I believe I do. Hi, Madam Nike. I see Prince Eze as well. I want to believe these are the people I know. Then, of course, I see another interesting name, Umar Sanda. So that's a very, very big name, especially for people from Niger State. Umar Sanda is like a name of an emir, 13th emir of Niger State. So I don't know if this is a descendant of an emir that is on the call. So, but of course, if you're here, thank you very much, and we hope to have a very interesting class. All right, please I'm about to share my screen now. Please confirm once you can see my screen, and I would do well to put it on presentation mode as well. Please let me know when you can see my screen.
Yes, you can carry on.
All right, awesome. Thank you very much again. It's such a delight to always be on the Transformation College class. You know, speaking on one thing or the other. Of course, this is a session that I wouldn't want to be the only one speaking. I would very much appreciate it if we could speak or share thoughts and ideas with one another. So please, I don't know, Mercy, how you can assist in that area, or maybe I have to start navigating between what's it called now? Teams, Zoom rather, and the presentation slides. All right. So, I mean, what I'll be discussing today is project management. And a mentor of mine once mentioned that, project can exist without project managers, but a project is bound to fail if you do not have a very good business analyst. And I, for one, appreciate what Benjamin and Benga have shared earlier, because of course, you need to be able to have some of these skills to be able to deliver on your work as even a project manager, So again, and that's why particularly I like the fact that he was able to demonstrate the use of draw.io. There are other tools also that can be used, Pencil, Bizagi, and some other things like that, I mean, we're in the world of artificial intelligence that you could leverage on so many tools that can help you become more efficient in your delivery as it is. But enough of that so that I don't bore you again. Right. So we're talking about project management, right? And particularly we'll be speaking about the area around scope management. We'll be talking about what scope management is, how important it is to project managers and even to a project in itself. I know that before now, we've talked about a lot of things in project management. When I mean before now, I'm saying like weeks before now, different, maybe last week, upper week, during this particular cohort, we'll probably have talked about things around initiation, principles, planning, execution, monitoring, and controlling, governance, certain areas, around project management. And today, of course, is going to be like a continuation to some of these things that have been, mentioned before now. All right. So, but just like a recap, right? What exactly, I know we've talked about, a lot of us have talked about what project is in different classes. Everybody have mentioned what they believe projects are, what it is, and things like that. However, let's start with a very simple thing, right? What really is the difference between the task? Oh, that's the lovely voice. All right. I don't know if that was a question for me. All right. As I was saying, right, it would be great for us to start with a simple question, right? What's the difference between a task, a project, and a program? This is a very, very simple concept that everybody should be able to know what it is and what it means. So maybe someone can do that favor for us and put that in the chat room. What the difference is between a task, a project, and a program. Like I said, it's possible that you have discussed some of these things before now, but just to set the basis upon what we will be discussing today. Task, project, program. Are they the same things? Are they different? What makes one different from the other? Task, project, programs. What is a task? What is a project? What is a program? Maybe just a short response. It doesn't have to be a lengthy thing that looks like a sentence or something. So task, project, programs. What's the difference? Maybe someone can unmute themselves. Messi, I want to believe that people are allowed to do that now.
To play that I know to come back.
I think you might want to mute. Someone's mic is.
To play that I know to come back.
Oh, wow. Messi, I don't know if you could do something about that for us, please. Someone's, yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. So, I'm now hoping that you've not muted everybody else out. So the difference between a tax, project, program, who wants to help us out? Okay. I see someone in the chat room, Ismail. Tax is an activity in a project. Yeah. Great. Who has a different opinion, a different perspective to what we've just mentioned? Tax, project, programs. Somebody else wants to unmute? Awesome, Madam Nika. Thank you very much. That's a specific piece of work. I completely agree. Any other person? Tax, project, program, which is longer, which takes more time, which is easiest to complete, which has more requirements for you to take and conclude. Tax, project, program. All right. Tax, project, program. All right, awesome. Thank you. Program seems longer. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, sorry, we don't waste time. All right. Tax is an activity within the project, obviously. Project is what's it called now? It's an endeavor, undertaken to create a unique product, service, or value or result, whatever it is. And then program, of course, is a combination of interrelated projects, to reach or to get a desired outcome at the end of the day. So, of course, tax is shorter. Project is slightly longer than that, and then program is even more longer, because of course it's a combination of projects. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. So let's proceed. All right. Let's proceed. What is project management then? Of course, we know we've talked about what project is. We've talked about what program is, what a task is. And of course, the project management has to do with coordination of resources, time, scope, to achieve desired objectives at the end of the day. This literally means that, you know, you need to put some things in consideration, and that's time, scope, and even resources, you know, to get these things out. In project management, there's this thing that they call triple constraints. And these are things that are really, really important for you to deliver when it comes to project management. And those things are scope, time, and resources, which could be costs, will be financial resources, you know, and things like that. So basically, scope helps you answer questions of what do we want to do? Do you understand? Time helps us answer the questions around when do we want that, or when do we want to do it? You know, and then of course, resources is how much and what do we need to get these things sorted out. Like I said, resources could be financial related, it could be human resource, you know, it could be materials resources, you know, any of those things that, you know, is very, very useful towards the completion of the desired outcome at the end of the day. Oh, thank you very much. Honestly, I see some other things that you've mentioned. Oh, thank you, Ismail. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. So, like I said, I know that before now we've gone through some of these things before, and those are, you know, focus areas and even performance domain. In the previous classes, I know we've talked about initiating, planning, executing, monitoring, and controlling, and even possibly closing, which are segments around focus areas on project management. And of course, there's the project management performance domain, which are really more like, you know, related processes that are critical towards the effective delivery of a project. At the end of the day, the thing you want to do is to ensure that value is gotten by stakeholders towards what is required at the end of the day. So again, focus areas are things that help you actualize and achieve what you want to do, while performance domain are more like interrelated, processes that are required for you to achieve what you want to do. In the previous editions of project management, a lot of them concentrated more around knowledge areas. You know, what are knowledge areas? You know, some 10 knowledge areas: time, you know, cost, resources, you know, and things like that. However, in the more recent versions of project management, version 7, version 8, you know, the focus area is more around value, more around what exactly do we want to do and how do we want to make sure that the customer or the client derives value from what has been delivered. Again, previous versions has more concentration around scope and the end result. But right now, it is beyond the end result. It is about the value that you get from the end result. I don't know if that makes sense to you, right? So a lot of shift, there has been a bit of shift in the focus around project management. So it is not just about the value, it is not about the outcome or the result now, but what exactly is the value that the client or the customer is going to get from, you know, their investment in whatever you are doing, be it construction, be it project tools deployment, be it ISO standard implementation, whatever that thing might be. At the end of the day, what they want to see is value that had been derived from their investment in, and I think like that. And then let's come back to the actual thing, or the subject of conversation today. What exactly is project scope? What is a scope? First of all, what do you think a scope is? I know everybody would have their own opinion about what a scope is. Some will say that, you know, it has to just do with an area of an activity or an area of work that has been given to you to deliver. Others might have different opinion around it. Some will just think that, you know what, you've just been given something to deliver and do that, nothing more. Do you understand? Others will have other opinion around it in a different way. However, you know, when it comes to project management, certain things are taken very, very serious and very, very important. Things like scope management. It is really, really important, because a lot of times the reasons why projects fail is because of poor project scoping. I've been in different and countless of projects, and I've seen how projects have been able to succeed beautifully because of how clearly those project scope has been defined. I've also seen instances where the project, you know, became a nightmare for everybody, you know, within the team, because of how wrongly the project had been defined, or the project scope actually has been defined. And of course, all of us here on this call, some of us are more experienced than others. Some have not even engaged themselves in one project or the other. However, one thing is very, very clear. Scoping and or scope management in itself, it's something that we see almost every time, right? Everywhere. Be it your tailor, giving a tailor an expectation that you have, and the person is expected to make a clothes a certain way. But of course, the person then makes the clothes some other way. How do they say these things now? What I ordered versus what I got. Is that how they say it? Or what I ordered versus what was delivered? Something along those lines. So the bottom line is that, some of those scopes are not clearly defined, not clearly uh, spelled out, and it becomes an issue at the end of the day. And then you see people taking themselves to police stations. You see people suing themselves, here and there because of the scope not being clear, or the scope being too ambiguous, and the project manager not exactly knowing what exactly needs to be done, or the clients giving the person an ambiguous scope that the person doesn't even know how to clearly break it down to achieve the desired result at the end of the day, right? So again, I mentioned earlier, right? I gave an instance of the project management performance domain where I mentioned things around governance, scope. I think this was the slide: scope, governance, schedule, finance. All of these performance domain are really, really important, and not to even say one is even more important than the other. So my point is, the scope management in itself is no more important than governance, or even scheduling, or even finance. All of them are interrelated processes that has to be clearly understood and even clearly delivered for them to be able to bring out the desired result at the end of the day. So what are the importance of scope management, and what are the objectives in a way, right? One of the importance, of course, is preventing scope creep. So how many of us are familiar with what scope creeping means? Have anybody heard about what scope creeping is? Have we heard about that term? Do we know what it is? If anybody has an idea, maybe can I see your hands up, or maybe you can explain, or just put in the chat room what scope creeping is. For people who are experienced around project management, or maybe have been involved in one project or the other, the term is not a new term for people like us, right? Okay, so let me see. Is there anybody's hands up? Okay, no, that's fine. So scope creeping, right? It's a very, very simple term. It's just something that talks about how, how do I put it now? How, whenever a project manager needs to deliver a project and has a clear scope, the client comes back to keep saying that, what, you need to add this, you need to add that, you need to add this, you need to add that. That unfortunately, make sure that the delivery timeline, becomes too long. The cost required to deliver on that work becomes even too much. What's it called now? The resources required for you to deliver on that work also becomes even more because of continuous scope creeping. So again, in a nutshell, scope creeping just has to do with, constant addition of an extra activity or an extra deliverable on a particular project. Let's take, for instance, now somebody wants an ERP system or an ERP solution, and then you as a client say, oh, you know what, project manager, this is what we want to do, or not project manager now. Consultant, this is what we want to do. This is what we have. This is what we have in mind. We want to ensure that the enterprise resource planning tool that has been installed for us can be able to connect with different departments within the organization for it to create a uniform platform for us to be able to, interact and, make sure that things work seamlessly. Now, consultant says, I understand. Project manager within the consulting company says, good to go. We get it. That's fine. And then they start to put the functional, what's it called now? Functional, what's it called now? Areas together, things around human resource, accounting, especially because it's an ERP, isn't it? And it has to do with all of these areas. So they start to put these things in place, and one project manager is done and the consulting company says they are done. Client then comes to say, this thing that you have delivered, I expected it to have, I expected it what do I say now? I expected it to be able to, give an annual reporting around what exactly the board will require for us to be able to make decisions. Some funny things that has not been initially drafted as a scope, but of course, that allowing scope creeping allows you to, scatters the entire thing, because at the end of the day, value is not gotten. Clients will say, I expected this. Project manager is saying, we delivered what you wanted, things like that. So improves project planning, the importance of project scoping also really, really helps improve, how your project will go, how things will go, how the budget and the cost control will be, help improves communication, reduces project risk, and things like that. The objective really is about seeing that, project have boundaries. Because as a project manager, if you're not able to clearly spell out boundaries, then of course your projects will end up being it's an endless cycle, because you keep accepting changes, and then it keeps having an undefined timeline for you to complete what needs to be done. It is also important, the objective also is ensure that, you're able to manage scope changes. It's not that, you can't accommodate some of these things when it comes to scope change and whatnot. However, there should be a proper way around those things can be done. It supports effective planning, like I said, which is another objective of scope management. Again, the idea is to ensure that, you have clarity around what needs to be done. You have clarity around the expectation of the client at the end of the day, and there is no ambiguity in anything that needs to be done at the end of the day. All right, so scope management has key concepts, right? Some key things that usually you can't move away from when it comes to project management. And one of those key concepts are business case, which of course has to do with explaining why the business is really, really necessary, or the project is really, really necessary. The business case really just shows, identifies the problem or the opportunity, the expected benefits, the cost, the risks, the options considered. It just helps project managers or stakeholders really decide if the project is worth doing or not worth doing. Do you understand? So it is important for every project, when you're doing scope management, to always have a business case, which clearly shows what exactly needs to be done, how it is important, and things like that. Of course, another concept is requirement, right? It's really, really important that you're able to gather requirements, and expectation of your client at the end of the day. It is going to be very, very weird for someone to say, I'm engaging you to do something, and you have no idea of what the requirements are, what exactly they want to do, how they want to go about it, and you just jump into delivery. Only a madman will do something like that, isn't it? Only a madman will do something like that. So these are key concepts, like I said, and it's really, really important for us to have that in mind while, carrying out scope management. One other key concept also is product scope. Which is, has to do with, describing how the features and functions of that product will be. Most times people often mistake product scope and project scope. Most times people get to mix it up, right? Product scope and project scope. The product scope has to do with the description of the features and functions of a product, while a project scope has to now do with the scope of the project in itself, what you need to do, what needs to be done, the value that is expected at the end of the day. So most times, like I said, people always mistake what the product scope and the project scope is. And of course, one other very, very important area is quality. I mentioned something around the triple constraints earlier, right? And I said the triple constraint is the scope, the time, and even resources, which could be cost or material resources, and things like that. In the middle of that triple constraint is quality. In the middle of that triple constraint is quality. If you have scope, you have time, you have resources, middle of it is quality. Because at the end of the day, what is the point of delivering a job or delivering a product and quality is not is not put in mind? Of course, nobody wants you to deliver and then of course see that you deliver rubbish. Nobody wants to see beautiful nonsense, isn't it? So quality is a very, very important key area, and of course has to do with ensuring that you clearly define the standard criteria that is expected to meet your stakeholders expectation at the end of the day. Scope baseline, right, which is another important key concept, right? This has to do with, the clear and approved baseline that has been given for that project scope, which has to do with, the work breakdown structure. It has to do with also, you having something to reference to say, this is what we will use as a baseline around what needs to be done. If there are changes, we come to the baseline to see if it conforms with what we already have in place, right? The last key concept is also work breakdown structure, which clearly has to do, how you break down activities or into activities more like into manageable, components. Assign roles and responsibility to each person to be able to do, just to ensure that at the end of the day, the desired outcome is gotten. Another very important concept is project backlog, which really has to do with how you prioritize the list of all the requirement has been gotten. Now, it doesn't have to mean that all of these requirements has to take same sequence. You just have to clearly show that this is what I want to do, this is what I want to do, and how I want to deliver what needs to be done. Again, this is a very, very interesting concept, a very, very interesting area of project management that if you get it wrong, then it's a beginning of of problem for you. And hence why I said it is important that, as project managers, you also need to have one level of business analysis or the other, which helps you to deliver on what you need to do properly. Right. We've talked about why scope management matters, right? We've talked about how it helps prevent scope creeping, how it helps control costs and ensure that stakeholder satisfaction is gotten at the end of the day. Right. I've just put together some very, very relatable examples around scope management and how, it influences and affects our delivery, or how it affects what needs to be done as a project manager. So for instance, now look at the first example that says, you tell a contractor you want, sorry, I remove this thing affecting my site. Okay. So you tell the contractor you want a 3-bedroom bungalow with a car park and a small garden. Halfway through the construction, you decide you also want a swimming pool and a guest house and a rooftop terrace without discussing additional time or cost. I mean, this is a clear example of what scope creeping is, isn't it? The project manager had already started, and eventually at some point you now came back to say, oh, you know what? Okay, I want you to add swimming pool to it. Guest house also. This land is properly, is big. You now say you not put guest house. Put guest house now. And of course, as you're saying all of these things, you're not increasing timeline, you're not increasing the cost for what needs to be done, and things like that. Let me give you a typical example also. Okay, I have it here. It has to do with a wedding, right? So some of us, I think I remember a friend of mine who wants to get married one time, and the guy says that when he went to the family of the lady to say he wants to get married, or they're ready to get married, and they were planning the weddings. Of course, weddings are not for the whole investment in the whole thing. Men still seems to take the backstage when it comes to some of those things. So interestingly, they said they were planning the wedding, and the families of the man went to the families of the lady, and they said, okay, this our wedding we want to do is just very, very simple, very, very small wedding, not more than maybe 25 or 30 people. That's what we want to do. I guess what the families of the lady will say, we don't do something small in our family. So we don't do something small in our family. In our head, we have a plan of about 500 guests to come for that wedding. And, this couple had already planned that, they've engaged somebody who helped them plan the wedding and all of those things. And they're already given an expectation of the number of people who will come for that wedding, only for only for the family of the bride to now come to say, it's 500 people that we are expecting. How will you say you want to do wedding? Are we beggars? Are we, how sometimes some of these things can happen. So bottom line sometimes is, right, as whoever is planning something, or as a project manager, it is important for you to clearly understand what exactly needs to be done. Also ensuring that everybody is taking along when it comes to the decision making, when it comes to what needs to be done. So you need to get the opinion of everybody, or at least in this instance, the family of the bride and groom must confirm to you that, this is the clear thing that we want. Nobody else is coming to give an extra thing that needs to be done. Right. Another example, of course, is number 2 here that says that, a client hires a software company to build a mobile app, with features of transfers, bill payment, and accounts. I just saw somebody who says, Jolov, don't finish. All right, so let me go back to what I was reading. A client hires a software company to build a mobile banking app with features of transfer, bill payment, and account balance inquiries. During development, the client requested a loan module, investment platforms, and AI chatbot. Without revising the contract, you are not increasing the money that you're going to pay. You're not saying that we want the timeline to be increased. You're not even saying that the project manager should consider how this can be, fashioned into the project in itself. Because we can't take out the fact that, there could be changes, when it comes to the delivery of something. However, these things should not have a repetition. It shouldn't be repeated. It shouldn't be constant, or it doesn't constantly happen that it will, distort what needs to be done. The key lesson really is that, we need to clearly have definition of the scope in itself, even before jumping into execution. We need to ensure that, all stakeholders are carried along right from the beginning of everything, so that everybody needs to know what needs to be done and what is the expected outcome. No external interference. Nobody else is coming to say, oh, but MD said that this needs to be done. And the project management is saying, like, what? It needs to be done? This is not in scope. Do you understand? And you need to use formal change control processes, just to ensure that everything is properly controlled and you're not having issues with the delivery at the end of the day. All right. I hope I'm not boring us too much. I hope I'm not boring us too much. All right. Let's go to scope management activities, scope management processes itself, right? And I mentioned earlier, I think somewhere here when I said focus areas, has to do with the initiation, planning, execution, monitoring, controlling, and even closing. Now, for each of these each of these performance domain has a focus area. So for instance, governance now, of course, you need to initiate, plan, execute, monitor. Scope also in this instance has its own component, schedule, also this component, finance. So, it's what's it called now? It's an important area, that defines how a project will go and how things needs to be concluded properly. So yes, there are 6 project management processes, scope management processes, I meant to say, that includes plan scope management, elicit and analyze requirements, define scope, develop scope structure, and monitor and control scope, and even validate scope in itself. So we're going to take this one after the other as a process within scope management. All right, so let's talk about the first one, which is plan scope management, right? What is plan scope management? Sorry, give me a second. Please confirm you can still see my screen. All right, please confirm you can still see my screen. Something popped up and I had to close it. Where's my
Yes,
chat?
please.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. Thank you. All right. So what is plan scope management, right? I mentioned that there are 6 components, and one of the first important areas is plan scope management. Now, planning of scope management has to do with ensuring that, you clearly define what the process of determining how the project will go, how, you're going to control the project, how the project will go, what has to do with the entire plan of what the project is about. The actual purpose for this is just to ensure that, there are proper rules of managing what the project scope is. Nobody wants to just, jump into any project without ensuring that you properly plan it. Now, this planning of scope management basically answers questions like how will the project be done? What are the requirements that will be done? How do we gather these requirements? Who approves scope changes? How will it be delivered? How will the scope be monitored? And as you can see on my screen, there are inputs, there are tools and techniques, there are even the expected output at the end of the day. Now, for you to be able to properly plan project scope management, of course, you need the project charter, you need the project management plan in itself, the enterprise environment factors, things like that. And of course, there are tools and techniques that are required for you to efficiently deliver in those areas, which means that you need to put into consideration expert judgment, meetings, and things like that. The expected output or outcome for this is to ensure that, you have a proper scope management plan in place. The expected outcome is also to ensure that, your scope has been clearly defined. It also ensures that, your project management plan, requirements plan is also in place, which clearly shows who and who will do what, the rules and responsibility of each person, and things like that. There's this thing that they say that if you don't plan to fail, you fail to plan, isn't it? So this is really, really important. And like I said, it's interesting to know that a combination of the project management performance domain and the focus areas, will give you about 4 different tools and techniques that you need to put in place. But of course, I don't think we have the time to explain all of that process, right? So again, it is important that whenever you're planning, you need to put into consideration what the inputs are, the things you need to, and the expected output at the end of the day. Right, let's move to the second part, which has to do with the elicit and analyze project requirement. Now, just like plan scope management, it also has its inputs, has its tools, has its what's it called now? Has its outputs, right? Now, the purpose of this is to ensure that you are properly collecting requirements that are needed for the project to be properly executed. Now, the process really has to do with identifying what are the things that are expected, how do we document this, what are the information that we're getting from people, is it through questionnaires, is it through proper meetings, stakeholder meetings, and things like that, just to ensure that you're gathering all the information that is required for you to deliver on your job. Projects usually succeed when they have real proper requirements being gathered. Now, the purpose of this is just to ensure that you're clearly understanding what the expectation is of your customers, and of course you're able to put this into consideration while delivering on your job. Another purpose of this is just to ensure that stakeholders' expectations are clearly defined even before the project is being executed. Again, like I said, it has, just like planning its inputs, the tools and techniques that are required to deliver, and even the possible output. Basically, this elicit and analyze requirement has to do with answering questions like, what does the customer need? What business problem are we solving? Really, what are the features that they want when it comes to what needs to be delivered? And of course, just like every requirement, it will raise questions like, there are things like business requirements, there are functional requirements. I hope some of us know some of these things, So, the business requirement really has to do with just ensuring that, customer satisfaction is being achieved, and functional requirement just has to do with that. It allows your customers be able to manage and get value, from the interconnected departments required. All right. So like I said, just like planning, it has its input, it has its tools and techniques. It also has its output. And it interests you to know that, some of these techniques are things that, we easily do when we're doing, requirement gathering, things like interview, brainstorming, focus group, things like that are things that, we always use one way or another. Again, the output or outcome required is just to ensure that you have a proper requirements documentation, to ensure that, you have a proper requirement traceability metric, something that helps you manage and gather the information that you've gathered at the end of the day. All right. All right, let's move to the next one that has to do with defining the scope, right? This is also equally important. Nobody wants to just jump into something without having a clear project scope defined. This has to do with just ensuring that, the detailed description of the project and its deliverable has been clearly spelled out. It's important that we need to know where boundaries are drawn. Nobody wants to just see that I've started a job and then you just come out of the blue to tell me that I need to do this, I need to improve on this, I need to add this feature, I need to add that. It becomes a headache for everybody or anybody who is a project manager in that area. The purpose of this is actually to just ensure that, ambiguity is eliminated in a way, just so that the project is clearly defined, delivered as required. It also answers questions like, what are we meant to do? What is included as part of scope, what is not part of scope. That way it is clear, and you can all easily go back to it to say, oh, you know what, this thing this person is saying, I have a clear scope defined. I can always go to the scope and look at it. This thing this person is saying, is it part of scope? It's not part of scope. So why do I need to put that into consideration? In fact, there's something called excuse me There's something called a concept of gold plating. I don't know if anybody is familiar with what that is. Are we familiar with what gold plating is? Gold plating is, for me, in my own words, it's like when somebody is doing, how did they say it in Yoruba? In my native language, they say aseju. Aseju means you're doing beyond what is expected of you to do. Do you understand? Gold plating is when somebody asks you to do something and then you go out of your way to put an extra feature. Nobody asked you, nobody sent you, but you went to add an extra feature just because you want to make the certain client happy. Everybody has the reason why they do gold plated. Some maybe because they want referrals and they want the person to call you back, or maybe you just want to make sure that you blow the mind of the client beyond what is expected, which is normal, which is your justification for that could be understandable. But in project management, you don't have to do that, because that way you're already also going out of scope, isn't it? Somebody says, I want you to build a house for me. And then you went out of your own generosity and went and built swimming pool. Who send you? Who send you? You understand? Because you want to make the customer happy. Or the person says he wants, what's it called now? The person says he wants a car. And then you now build the car for the person, and then you now build an extra feature, a car that is convertible, and you can plug in something, all these weird things that nobody asked you to do. So again, it is important that boundaries are clear and you're clear around what is needed, what needs to be in scope, what needs to be out of scope, and you're not doing gold plating, because again, who sent you, and then you're just going beyond what is expected of you. Now, the output of the defined scope is just to ensure that your project objectives is clearly shown, your project document and project scope statements are clearly defined. What's it called now? Your requirement documentation is also in place, so that you can always reference this to say this was what we agreed upon. This is what you're asking us to do, and there's clear boundaries. This cannot be added. I hope this makes sense. All right, so let's move to the next one, which is develop scope structure, which is another very, very important area with this. The essence of this really is just to ensure that there's a proper breakdown of what needs to be done, which has to do with ensuring that you properly use your work breakdown structure, meaning that you break down activities or tasks to be done into manageable components, just to ensure that the end goal is gotten at the end of the day. The purpose of this is just to organize project into manageable work spaces. The idea also is just to ensure that what's it called now, what needs to be done is clearly done properly. Now it has its input also, the tools and techniques required, and also the desired output for it, right? And of course the input will mean that you need to put project management plan in place. You need to put the project documents in place, approve changes where required, and all of those things. And of course, the desired output is to ensure that, scope baseline is clearly designed. You have a proper work breakdown structure, clearly ensuring that, the projects are broken down into smaller manageable pieces of work that is required to be done. And of course, you have product backlog, which I explained earlier, which is a list of things that you need to do during the project in itself. All right, so let's move to the next one, which has to do with validating scope. All right, so just like every other process, it has its inputs too, it has its tools, techniques, and also it has a desired output that is required. Again, the essence of this is just to ensure that there's a formal acceptance of completed project deliverables from the customer or even the sponsors, just to be sure that you validated what needs to be done, and all the deliverables are met and the agreed requirements are also met. This is also just to make sure that you are not having issues with regards to what needs to be done, and nobody will come to say that, oh, we said this and this is what you're doing. So it's important for you to be able to always ensure that you validate the scope, you ensure that everything is airtight, nothing foreign is coming in, nobody's asking you to do anything funny. Again, the purpose is just to ensure that, customer agrees with the deliverables and the agreed requirements. We used to make this mistake. I particularly, I used to make this mistake before, right? Before we engage in any project, we'll have a meeting with the client, and the client will come to say, oh, this is what we want to do. This is what we want to do. This is what we want to do. And then we'll just talk over it over the phone, or maybe Zoom call, or maybe Teams call, like that. And that's the end of it. What we'll just come back to the person and say is that we want to start the project. Which is a very, very wrong way of approaching some of these things, isn't it? So it is important that whenever you're having that conversation with the client or stakeholders, while they are saying to you or telling you what exactly they want, ensure that you're documenting these things. And once you're done documenting, you send an immediate email to them that, oh, thank you very much for having for the call we had earlier. Just so that we are on the same page with what is required. This is the list of everything that you've said. Again, it saves you trouble. Saves you trouble in the future, isn't it? Because when the person sees your email, and in the instance where you missed something that is important that the person needed, the person is able to revert to say, oh, you missed this, you didn't add this. And then that way you can easily add it and then send back to the email, send back to the client to say, okay, this is what you said I missed. This is a complete scope that has been drafted. Please confirm if this meets what exactly you want. Now, there's a reason for this, because you don't want issues at the end of the day too, isn't it? You don't want to have an instance where the person then comes back to say, oh, but I said you should do this. And then in the email that you sent confirming the scope, the person didn't say anything like that. You have something to always fall back to say, this is what we agreed. This is clearly what we agreed and what we intend to deliver. So really, what's it called now? Validating of scope just has to do with answering questions like, did we do or have we done what is requested? Is the customer satisfied with what has been drafted and required for us to deliver? Again, it has its inputs, it has its tools, and the expected output is to ensure that the deliverables are accepted. The change require what's it called now, project document updates are put in place, and of course, if there are lessons learned and what's called updates are also put in place. Again, you don't want an issue, an instance where you have issues with what is expected, vis-a-vis the client not coming to trouble you at the end of the day. Right. So let's move to the last one that has to do with monitoring and control scope. I'm very mindful of time as well. I don't want Messi to be in my DM or to say, oh, Hafiz, it's almost time, So again, it's always important for us to also know this, because again, monitoring and control is very, very important in everything that you do, especially because you also have a scope baseline that you have in place, and you want to always make sure that what you've put in place aligns with what you already drafted as a baseline. So it is important, right, that we always monitor and control, just in case what the planned activity is deviating from the expected outcome at the end of the day. The purpose really is to ensure that we're not having scope creep, and also to ensure that only approved changes are implemented. Now, if you notice that you are having things that are going off what is required at the end of the day, this is why you have, the monitoring and control part of, scope management, so that you're able to make adjustments where required. Again, the essence of this is just to answer questions like, has the scope changed? Is any change that has been adopted, has it been approved? What impact will that also have on the project that is being carried out? So again, it is really, really important that we know these things and we put these things in place while we are project managing anything that needs to be done. Just to put in summary, all what we've discussed around, what's it called now? What we've discussed around planning, the scope requirement, the definition of scope, validating the scope, and even the control scope, right? It has its purpose, it has the main output, and what is expected at the end of the day. So for instance, planned scope management, what is the purpose really? Just to decide how the scope will be managed. And the main output at the end of the day is just to ensure that you have a proper scope management plan in place. Now, when you're doing eliciting, also has to do with also gathering requirements, ensuring that the stakeholder needs and expectations are properly gotten, and then the output really is just to ensure that requirement documentations and traceability metrics are in place, right? Defining the scope, clearly showing what needs to be done on the project and what the project scope statement is. Now, again, this is really, really important. The work breakdown structure, which has to do with what's it called now, developing project scope structures, just has to do with breaking projects into components. And of course, you have your work breakdown structure, just like as clearly shown here, right? Validating scope just to also ensure that the scope had been agreed by the client or even whoever is engaging us. And controlling scope also just has to do with ensuring that nothing is deviating from what is expected. All right, so practical tools for scope management. We've talked about, how important it is to have, scope statement, your scope management plan, because these are really, really things that will help you. And of course, we mentioned that for you to be able to deliver efficiently in your own job, you need to know how to use some of these tools. Again, your knowledge around business analysis can help you put these things in place. And the good thing is we're also in an AI world, isn't it? Some of these things can actually be achieved using some artificial intelligence platforms that will help you deliver on what is required of you to do, be it a scope statement that you want to develop, or maybe a scope management plan that you want to develop, or maybe you want a clear work breakdown structure and you want artificial intelligence to help you break down those things. I mean, we'll show you some of those things if time permits, if time permits us. Right. Okay. So yeah, I'm just talking about AI and how, important AI is to the world of project managers today, right? AI have made things way, way easier. I think somebody was mentioning earlier today, I can't remember who it was now. Is it Benjamin now or can't remember. During the course of the conversation today, somebody was saying that AI, people have this impression that AI will come take jobs. I mean, when AI world now, it's people who do not know how to use AI that will end up losing their jobs, isn't it? So it is important for us to know that while we're doing project management, there are so many tools that are useful to us while carrying out our duties diligently. And of course, I will show us how some of those things work. Today there are over, tens of thousands of AI tools that can be used around project management. And in fact, it would interest you to know that even things like ChatGPT, could be used to gather information that is required of you for your project, right? Things like Gemini, things like, what else again comes to mind? Copilot also, just to be able to give you an idea of how to structure some of these things. However, there are some other tools that are more project management focused, that I'll show us how some of those tools can be used, right? Again, it is important for us to be able to explore how these tools can be useful and beneficial to us. We're in the world where, everything that you need to do can be done with proper prompt, with few clicks, you're able to get everything that you need to do. Sometimes for you to create a proper scope plan will take you days and weeks for you to put those things in place. However, these days, you don't even need to spend so much time doing those things and you're able to clearly put those in place. Right. Like I said, there are so many tools that you could use. Lately I saw one called Taskade. I saw another one called Hive AI. Some of these tools are paid, of course, if you want value, you also need to make some kind of commitment, right? Isn't it? To get what you need at the end of the day. That's not to also say that that there are no non-paid ones, like free ones that you can also leverage and you will get value from it. So like I said, you could use Notion AI, you could use Hive AI, you could use Taskade, and of course I will show us how to use what's it called now? I'll show us how to use ClickUp, or ClickUp in itself, how we could leverage on some of those things. All right. Let me see if I can quickly share my screen. Give me a second. Let me share another screen just to show us how some of those tools can be used. Again, it is important that, we need to know how, is my screen still showing? Please confirm, as I stopped presentation mode. I don't know if you can still see my screen. All right. So let me bring up another screen that will show us how to use some of these tools, and I would visibly show us how that can be done. All right, where is Zoom? Where is Zoom? Where are you? Okay, stop sharing. Okay. Okay. All right. So where is share button? Right. Where is that screen now? Give me a second, please. Give me a second. Oh, I thought I had it up. Okay. Give me a second. stop sharing. Share again. Okay, yeah, found it. All right, so please let me know once you can see my screen, right? This is a platform that we could use for brilliant project management. Like I said, there are so many tools you could use. You could use Gemini to gather some information that you require. You could use ChatGPT as well, just to clearly get what you want. I particularly prefer this particular platform. It's called Brain, which is very important. Some of us might be familiar with it. Some have been using this. But the beauty about the beauty about this tool, right? For me, it gives you some extras beyond what the Chat GPTs or Gemini or some other platforms will give you. Again, this is a completely free tool. Let me see if I'm able to get the URL and send to ClickBrain. Okay, ClickBrain. Okay, so let me put that on the chat room so that some of us can have. Why can't I find the chat room? 1 second. Please. Yeah, found you. ClickBrain. All right, it's a very brilliant tool. I particularly like it because it gives you so many other things that you can do. So, for instance, now, right, it also it allows you to be able to bring in some other team members for you to collaborate on something or one project or the other. It gives you the opportunity to also, just ask questions, just like the normal chat GPT and the rest. So we'll be using this to be able to generate some what's it called now, scope management. What's it called now? So to develop a scope management for a particular project. It allows you to be able to, get teams or introduce other members of your team to be able to collaborate and work on something or one thing or the other. It allows you to have dashboards. It collaborates with, people. You can also put in or have documents stored on this platform, allows you manage timesheet. Just like the way how a proper the way how project management tools work, be it Trello, and some other platforms that exist, it helps you manage, maybe not in detail on how those ones can do, but some kind of allows you manage in some type of way seamlessly. Again, this is really important for us to be able to use tools like this that will just make things make our life easy, make things seamless. In fact, you can even do things like what's it called now, stand-up meetings on platforms like this when you allow multiple when you invite some other team members on the platform, so you can have stand-up meetings. You could also have possibly collaborate on certain documents that needs to be done. If you have other members of your team that need some things to be done, you could plan an activity, things like that. It can also be integrated with your Microsoft Outlook, calendar. So it's a very brilliant tool, and I encourage that some of us or all of us should actually look at it and see how to leverage on this particular tool. All right, so I see that time is fast spent. Just give me a second. We need to just put one or two things on this platform to be able to see what it actually can do for us. Right. Okay. So again, right, it is very important in the world of artificial intelligence for us to be able to know how to prompt. And again, this is where Benjamin and what's it called now, and Benga have clearly and detailed spoken about. It is really important for us to be able to know how to prompt, because if you use AI and you're not able to clearly ask the right questions, then you get beautiful nonsense, isn't it? But it is important for you to be able to say what exactly you want and how exactly you want it. So if you want a clear work breakdown structure, what exactly do you need to say? If you want a clear, proper scope management plan, you know exactly what to say. If you want certain things to be done, you know exactly how to prompt it to be able to get what you want at the end of the day. So this is a prompt that I've written, just to save time. And we can say that as a project manager, develop a project scope statement for implementing an employee attendance system for a company with 500 employees, which include objective, deliverables, assumptions, constraints, exclusion, and even acceptance criteria. Now, just like every AI tool, this just works as magic. You just, allow it to do its magic and brings up this beautiful response for you. It is important for us to be able to clearly state what exactly we want, how we want it, and how it will clearly bring it out. Again, it is important for you to also know that these things are not perfect. I remember when Mr. Sonny was also saying earlier in his call earlier that, AI platforms have no soul, isn't it? They have no they have no human feeling or whatnot. So some of the responses that you might get might not give you exactly what you want. And it is important that you as a project manager, and if you want to use tools like this, you always have to review whatever output is given to you, so that you see if this is in alignment with what exactly you want. And if it's not just giving you beautiful nonsense, it can give you 10-page worth of work. And what you see at the end of the day is a beautiful nonsense, isn't it? So we'll just ask ClickUp Brain to give us a project scope statement, for an employee attendance management system, for an organization that has 50 employees, which includes objectives, and things like that. So, I mean, look at what this has beautifully brought up. It has brought up the project objectives, the deliverables, what's it called now, the assumptions, the constraints, the exclusions, acceptable criteria, some of these things. Again, like I said, some other chat platforms like ChatGPT or Gemini, or even what they call this now, what they call this, yeah, Gemini, yes, or even Copilot, can build some of these things for you. However, my own preference for this is because this is a more integratable platforms that help you manage a lot of things and even help you manage projects in this way. So you can clearly have this. You can export these as well into a more proper document, and then you can even edit it and even make adjustments where required. Again, the essence of this is to be able to, how this is clearly defined and gives you an idea of what needs to be done. This is also not to say that you can 100% rely on the information of what is given. So I encourage us, please let's, because of time, I see this is 2:20 Nigerian time. I encourage us to have a look at this platform, see what we can do. It even gives you option of selecting some of the areas that you want to clearly have, you want to clearly manage as a project manager. It gives you an opportunity to have some certain features or take out certain features, either upscale or downscale. Again, it's completely free, at least as at today. Right? It's completely free as at today. And of course, you can always see what value you can get from this. All right, thank you very much. Let's go back to the work. I think I'm almost done so that I don't bore us even more. Right. Where's my screen? Okay. Where's my PowerPoint? Okay, please let me know once you can see my screen again. All right. So typical examples in Nigerian context. What I ordered versus what I got, isn't it? Right? This is what you ordered. This is what the tailor end up sending to you. I mean, we've seen this happen countless times. I mean, we've seen this happen over and over. Tailor say, this is what you will get. In fact, the tailor ends up giving you or delivering the project for you or the work for you after 2 months. Even the 2 months, it's with lies, with so many, he come here, come tomorrow. At the end of the day, what the person end up giving you is completely rubbish, at the end of the day. So again, it is important that we clearly understand what exactly the clients want, what the detail of what exactly they want, and even have clarity around what the cost and all the extras required for the project to be clearly completed. Again, this is a typical example of what I ordered versus what I got. Somebody says they want bungalow. You as a project manager end up building two-story building. These are things that sometimes, could be issues arising from maybe faults from an architect or even the project manager in itself. Which brings me to a very brilliant question. In the context of construction, right? Bearing in mind project management. In the context of construction, bearing in mind project manager management. Who do you think an architect? Do you think an architect is the same as a project manager? Just bearing in mind in construction, having construction in mind, and having project management in mind. Do you think architect and a project manager is the same person, or do you think these are two completely different people? This is a question I'm just throwing throwing to the house, right? An architect and a project manager. Are these two completely different people? Is it the same person? These days you see you see when people are building houses and you hear engineer, engineer, engineer. Right? Is the engineer the project manager, or is it the architect? You know, who is a more higher ranking person? Or could the project manager be the same person as an architect? So I'm asking three questions actually now, right? I'm asking three questions. The first question is the architect and is the architect different from a project manager? That's the first question. Is the architect and the project manager the same person? Second question is the project manager allowed to also be the architect of a particular project? Third question is who has if these people happen to be two completely different people, who is a higher ranking person? Who reports to who? I hope I'm not confusing us. I hope I'm not confusing us, right? So let me see if I can go to the chat room if I'm seeing. Awesome. Awesome. Thank you very much. Thank you. Completely different people. They are completely different. Thank you so much. Architect can be a project manager, not that all project managers can be architect. Brilliant, 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 brilliant. Yes, they're two completely specialists. Yeah, yes, they're different. They should be different. The architect can also be project manager. The project manager is higher. Brilliant. Thank you very much for that beautiful, those beautiful comments. I agree that yes, the project manager and the architect are two completely different roles, right? And who reports to who? The architect reports to the project manager. Can the two roles be done by one person? Absolutely. Eh, Only if the person has the skills required. Now, you cannot claim to be engineer in the Nigerian context now. You cannot claim to be engineer. And what you end up doing is something like this, right? You can't claim to be engineer. And then what you end up doing is a house without stairs or a house that has doors and you don't have how to enter the house. Because there are people who will say, I can do it. I can do it. I can do it. And then you give them the job to do. And then what they end up delivering for you is completely rubbish. I've seen instances where you have a building like this, and what the person delivered, and then the owner of the house was like, "Oga, what have you done?" The person said, no, this house, what I can do is to build a pole. I'll put a pole in between. I'm talking about the first, the what is now. I can build an iron pole and then put metal, what they call this thing now? Yeah, I don't know if you've seen something like that. The person will now put metal around the pole, make it a circular thing, and then people will now start climbing the metal for them to access the building on top. So there are crazy things that people do right now that they claim that they're engineers, but have zero idea of what is meant to be done and how to approach those things. So if you have no skills around being an architect and putting some of these things in place, then you shouldn't even have that role to do. You can just clearly project manage and then allow the architect to plan, put those things in place, and then ensure that these things are clearly and properly delivered as required. Now, if you have a house like this, the what is now is what I'm saying. Who do we blame? Do we blame architect or do we blame engineer? Who do we blame? Who do we blame when it comes to this? Who is to blame? Is it the project manager? Is it the architect or whoever has put this in place? Who do we blame at the end of the day? All right. Who do we blame? Because you're expected to build a house that has a stairs that takes you to the apartment that is on top. But there's no stairs. In fact, it's interesting to know that I've seen houses where where stairs were put, and there is no door for you to even go to where the stairs is. As in very funny things happening. So we've seen all sorts of things happening in this day and time, and it is important for us to clearly know roles and responsibilities and who needs to do what and whose role needs to do what at the end of the day. Ladies and gentlemen, we've talked about AI management tasks and how AI can help us, clearly write scope statements. You can do that with proper prompting. Work breakdown structures with proper prompting as well, stakeholder analysis, and even reviewing change requests, even with AI. So with ClickUp, you can do all of these things, and of course, you get results and value from it at the end of the day. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. I hope I've not been too boring. I hope we've enjoyed and learned one thing or the other. Again, we're in the AI world. It is very, very important for us to leverage on what we have and what we can do with AI, because we also do not want to remain We also want to be more efficient in what we do. And of course, we don't want people who have AI skills to also take our jobs at the end of the day. So thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. I hope this was a beautiful session and I hope we learned one thing or the other. Messi, you can come to my DM now. I think so that you don't say I've taken so much time beyond what is required. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. If you have questions, I'm happy to respond to it. Thank you very much. Where is my Zoom now? All right, Messi. Is Messi here? Questions, questions, questions. How come I can't see the actual thing? All right, thank you. Thank you very much. Is Messi still on the call? I strongly doubt it.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Hafiz. Thank you for an amazing session. Please, can we begin to send our appreciation to Mr. Hafiz for an amazing session? Thank you very much, Mr. Hafiz.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. I see that we've taken so much time, so we don't drag people up. Yeah, I saw a question from Osashon. Yes, you can use, what's it called now? You can use the same ClickUp to, just so that I don't take more time. You can use ClickUp, just to ensure that you have proper prompting, drafted. And of course, it can also improve, on your result as you go. So like I said, just play with the tool. You would gain a lot of value from it at the end of the day. Thank you very much, everyone. Over to you, sir. Thank you. Sorry for cutting you.
All right, no problem at all. Messi, I can see you're back on the call. Would you like to take over and round up? Hello, Messi. Okay, so anyway, we've taken enough time for today and we've taken announcements before the commencement of classes. The materials will be shared to the group. The links for the assessments will be shared as well. So at this juncture, I would just like to let everybody go. And I would like to say a big thank you to all our trainers for today again. Let's enjoy the rest of our weekend. God bless you and see you again next week. Take care.